All set, Lisa.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Welcome back. So happy to see everyone here today. It's been an exciting couple of weeks. We've had lots of conversations. We've been doing a lot of planning. On Tuesday, we sort of went over our phase 3 plan for bringing back the students that indicated they would like to be back with us. We sent out percentages and numbers to staff and families yesterday. We have a great majority of our families who would like to be back with us beginning April 12th, which is awesome. We also have some that would like to remain at home. So we are working out how we are going to maintain the integrity of both our remote and in-person options for our students so that we aren't compromising anything. There are a lot of logistical pieces that we're working out. I want to assure everyone that, although the logistical and detailed planning is starting now that we have numbers, we've actually been working through scenarios for about a month to talk about how we might be able to do this. And there's been lots of different ideas that have been thrown around. We've been trying to work within the guidance that we had. And then, of course, Tuesday, we got new guidance around 11:30 in the morning, because that's how things have been since March. The state and the Illinois Department of Health have given the okay to have classroom settings be between 3 and 6 feet. But having lunches and any time a student is with a mask off, we need to remain at 6 feet. So lunch is still an area that we're working logistics out on. We want to make sure that we stay to that required 6 feet for folks when they're eating. We've also been tracking our staff and teacher vaccinations. We're at about 92% of our staff who've had their first shot, about 53% who have had their second shot. And we have, I think, about 10 individuals who are considered fully vaccinated at this point, meaning 2 weeks out from their second shot. So, as we map it out, if folks stay on the trajectory of 4 weeks in between the first and second shot, then we should be good to go with the majority of our staff being fully vaccinated with the 2 weeks in by April 12th. And that was the goal. The reason that helps us, not only is it safer for our adults who are with the kids, but when a fully vaccinated individual becomes a close contact or is within 6 feet for more than 15 minutes of a positive confirmed COVID case, that person no longer needs to quarantine. And that is a huge issue for us in terms of having bodies in the building to supervise kids. Because if teachers have to quarantine, then we really run into staffing issues in terms of supervising kids. So April 12th was a date that we felt comfortable with, that we would be fully staffed with a majority of folks not needing to quarantine if they come in close contact. We definitely have had some issues recently and had to quarantine some students based on close contacts in the community or in their homes. So COVID is still real. I mean, our numbers and metrics in Lake County and in our zip code look good, but that doesn't mean it's gone away. We obviously still know that there are variants out there. We don't know exactly the impact of those, but the data is trending in a really good direction. We're seeing that the vaccinations are effective, and we're excited to bring back our students, as many as want to be with us. I do want to say, though, really off the bat, we are not going to be forcing students back in this year. So if students want to remain remote, they are going to be able to do that. And we are working right now to figure out how to make sure that that remote option is as seamless and as effective as it has been this year for those students. I know that some families are a little bit concerned that that's a shifting direction that we're going, and that's not true. That option will still be viable and available at least through the rest of this year. And we're looking towards next year. I'm not exactly sure how that's going to look yet. The state has indicated to some degree that a student's underlying medical condition or somebody in the home being unvaccinated may be a reason for the student to stay remote. But I think there's going to be more guidance coming for us on that as we progress through this. So with that, I want to leave enough time for questions and answers or feedback and thoughts from this group on the things that we've been talking about recently.
Maybe this is more of a middle school than elementary school question, but what was the guidance most recently in terms of student movement through the day and potting and class to class?
Yep. So the guidance is fairly clear that they'd still like us to do cohorting and pods as much as possible. And that is for the reason of contact tracing. So we are looking to have kids move from class to class. Those passing periods are 5 minutes. So if kids mix within those 5 minutes, it's not really considered a close contact, but obviously maintaining seating charts in those classrooms is going to be important, because if we do have a positive case in the middle school, it will impact more children than it would have in the past. And let me just go through that. The issue that we're having is that while the spacing between students is changing, so we're getting the okay to move to less than 6 feet in terms of safety, the issue of the definition of being a close contact hasn't changed. That has always been, if you've been within 6 feet of a confirmed positive case for more than 15 minutes, you are then considered a close contact. And what happens when you're a close contact is that you need to go into quarantine for at least 14 days. Now, in the last, I think it's been about 2 months that the Lake County Health Department has given us permission to issue a 7 to 10 day quarantine. That is not the case if we are below 6 feet, because the 10-day quarantine or the 7-day quarantine is predicated upon the fact that that person will be able to stay 6 feet from other individuals through the remainder of the 14 days. If they come back to school, they're no longer within 6 feet. So they have to serve the total 14 days outside of school in remote quarantine. So it will impact us to some degree, and some families may be impacted potentially more with quarantines than in the past, because we have had positive cases in the building and we haven't had to quarantine folks based on the fact that everyone's 6 feet apart. So that is definitely going to impact us, which is why I know, there's been a lot of talk about live teaching or getting kids off the Chromebook. And I do understand that, as educators, believe me, I see it with my own kids. It's a lot of time on screens. We know it's not good for kids. At the same time, it has offered a seamless experience for kids who have to be in and out of school. And that has been something that many parents have been grateful for, and students have been grateful for once they've had to experience that quarantine and the disruption that might cause. So as much as we want to shift away from the remote learning platform, and we will to the degree that we can, it's still going to be a big important part of what we're doing for kids right now, because we're trying again to not have the learning disrupted. I don't know about you guys. I would say my comfort on this platform in terms of feeling like I'm sitting with people and talking with people has definitely increased since March. I mean, I remember when I was starting to have meetings on Zoom and it felt so disjointed and so strange and people weren't really talking, and we've evolved as adults for sure. And I would love the teacher thoughts on this, but I would imagine, and from what I've heard, our students have become more comfortable and engaged on this platform as well. It's not perfect. Neither is being in person right now based on the safety things that we have to do. Neither situation is going to look like what we've been able to do in the past. I mean, when we're talking about the instructional model that Lake Bluff has had in place, we're really talking about best practice, and best practice has to do with small groups and individualization and differentiation and, really targeting a student's needs and getting them engaged. That's not something we're going to be able to really live up to for a while until this pandemic is a little bit more behind us. So, but again, I would love any thoughts or input on that. It's a good question, Brian, because it will impact us.
Maybe that's why. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Nate.
Paige, go ahead.
I was just thinking about just the specials at our school, and I've been able to Zoom, but it's with an entire grade. So yesterday, having 107 fifth graders on a Zoom where we're trying to learn a little history through picture books because I have 20 minutes, and doing some Kahoots. They are loving it and they all tell me they love it. And then you have 107 and you get one kid who, you know, is being rude or something and I have to mute everyone. I mean, it's just it's hard balance. I can't wait to have small classes again and just see kids again, even if it's, I don't know how it will look next year, but I mean, the kids have been great and they're doing it and they really enjoy that engagement of just me once a week seeing them. But, you know, I'm looking forward to something a little bit different, hopefully next year. I know it won't change for me this year, but.
Thanks, Paige. I was only going to add to Lisa's comment and in fact, Ryan's question a little bit. You know, the Zoom fatigue is real. I feel it as a parent and as an educator. And this continual kind of requirement that we self-certify and monitor kids' health, all of that can become a drain, right? But I do want to remind everybody of its importance. It's really critical that we're not sending kids to school that aren't feeling well and are displaying symptoms. And I want to applaud our community because for the most part, that's been, we've done a very good job of that. And I appreciate parents' cooperation with it. I would say that it's going to become even to some degree more important as we consider a shift into this next phase, because as Dr. Leali had already stated, the components of contact tracing and what is defined as a close contact has remained the same. So we're going to have to look really closely at what we do in the event that a student is here and symptomatic. So please continue to do what you're doing at home, parents, and really make sure that you're checking in with your kids and checking their temperature before you send them out the door. We're checking kids as they arrive still. And so just that team approach is going to be one that's going to help us to be more successful.
Thanks, Paige and Nate. I will take a minute to, since we talked about it, go into what next year potentially could look like. We're planning for a much more normal year next year in terms of schedule, in terms of, you know, movement around the building at this point. The masking will still be in place, I'm sure of it. We will still be keeping distance between students. It's not going to look the same. My guess is we probably will be still maintaining 6 feet at lunch. Probably will still be engaging in contact tracing and those types of things. But what I am working on with some other districts is potential for 2 pathways for remote learning. One would be a more self-contained model that a family could choose to enroll in for the entire year based on whatever variable is impacting them in their home. So if the student themselves are immunocompromised or have a medical condition, or if someone in the home does, or if the parent just feels more comfortable remaining remote, looking to cooperate with some other districts to find a solution for that could be very stable. Could have students interfacing like this without a mask, you know, kind of inhibiting things. And then trying to figure out the best way to handle quarantines and those types of things in district, and how we might make sure that that stays. If a student has to be out for a week, 2 weeks or more, that we might have an option for them here as well. So again, it's really 2 different pathways next year, but I don't see us moving away from having some way for kids to engage if they have to be out for an extended period of time. The thing that's hard is actually it's less time out if the student themselves is diagnosed with COVID. It's actually harder if someone else in the home is diagnosed, because then that student is at home and their whole family is at home until for the duration of the family member's illness. And then if the student becomes ill, out for their illness, and if somebody else then picks it up, you're talking potentially 6 to 8 weeks of a student being out, depending on how big the family is and how that moves through the home. So I know it's, until you've experienced it, it's hard to imagine, but it's a lot that goes into, you know, trying to contain the situation. So. we have had some requests or some questions recently about at-home tests. So I know that there is some availability of at-home testing kits now, where, you know, you might have that ability to just kind of, you know, do your own swab, send it in, and then get results back. At this point, the health department is not recommending that we accept at-home kits. And the reason for that is reliability of the testing procedure. You know, when you go somewhere for a PCR test, you go to a medical facility, you go to a clinic, there's some level of, you know, standardization and training and calibration with the machines. It's hard to guarantee that same level of oversight when someone's doing it in their home. So at this point, we are not accepting at-home test results for negative tests right now. We'll keep people posted on that. Might be a great tool though for you in your own home, in your own life, to just kind of know, but that's not something that we are accepting at this point. Other questions or thoughts? I know some folks have asked and inquired about travel guidance. I know that we're coming up on spring break, and I would imagine there are some people planning on doing some traveling. You know, quite honestly, there's some confusing and contradictory guidance coming out on fully vaccinated individuals right now. So like I talked about, full vaccination would be 2 weeks after your second shot. And currently the CDC is saying that as a fully vaccinated individual, you can gather with other fully vaccinated individuals unmasked and kind of without precaution. And if you come into close contact with a positive case, you do not need to quarantine. On the other hand, CDC is also saying that fully vaccinated individuals who travel are recommended to quarantine after they get home, regardless of where they've been. And I think, you know, the explanation that I get on that is about the variants. You know, the variants are in different places around the country. We're really working hard to try and contain those until we get to mass vaccination and get to more herd immunity that way. But it is confusing for people. So as a district, we just keep asking that if you are going to travel outside your home anywhere, and I mean like down the street, that you still maintain wearing a mask with folks that you, when you're around them and you don't know what their vaccination status is, that you're not, you know, gathering and being within 6 feet, that we're not, you know, that we're using good hand hygiene and just kind of doing all the things that we have known have worked throughout this entire situation. We are still seeing community spread at events and gatherings in the community, and so we all need to take precaution. And there are safe ways to travel. So, you know, just as much as it could be dangerous here within town, it could be also safe for states away. So just making sure that we all adhere to that guidance and try to stay as safe as we can would be helpful.
I just want to add one thing about the vaccinations. Like you mentioned, Dr. Leale, there's still, you know, a number of staff members who aren't vaccinated and may not be getting vaccinated, and that's for whatever reason, and that's their, you know, that's their deal, and we don't ask questions. But if that is the case, it may, depending on where those staff members are, you know, they can still stay 6 feet away from, you know, the students and be protected, and, you know, they're still going to be able to do their job. But again, that might look a little different too, depending on comfort level and just trying to stay safe. So I just don't want there to be a, well, everybody's got the vaccine and we're going to be, you know, interacting. Again, we need to remember that there, even if you are vaccinated and you still don't feel comfortable, you're still welcome to stay 6 feet away from the students. And you may be doing a lot of, you know, teaching from your spot and not moving. And so I just don't want there to be a misconception that we're going to be doing whatever. I think at this point, it really needs to be up to the individual teachers and their comfort level. That's just my
Yeah, I appreciate that, Michelle. There's definitely still various opinions on and various approaches to handling being out in public during this situation. So that's something that we want to respect. And I would tell you that we have heard a lot of parents who are interested in having things return to normal. In the past couple of weeks, I've also heard from a lot of parents who are concerned about things being returning to normal and concerned about things that they're seeing in the community and ways that folks are interacting that feel unsafe to them. And so protecting that remote option has come out as an opinion as well in the last couple of weeks, because many parents, not as many as want to come in, but we still have a group in the community that really want that remote option because they're feeling uncomfortable right now. And not uncomfortable with the way we've organized ourselves at school, but more just uncomfortable with the level of risk based on what they're hearing about in the community. So again, I think we all have to have a healthy respect for each other and what we're all dealing with. It's kind of like that, what is that saying, be kind. You never know what the story is of the person you're talking to. I've heard a lot of stories in the last few months, in the last 9 months, however long I've been here, and people have shared things that probably they wouldn't have shared. And, it's good to know, and it's good to know that everyone has their own situation that they are interested in protecting for various reasons. And so it's a good point to remember to have that respect for folks and what they're going through right now. This is not easy for anyone.
Something that just occurred to me, maybe probably not the best thing to bring up 5 minutes before we're going to be done, but teachers are getting vaccinated. Eventually our kids are going to get vaccinated. Are we looking at maybe how that's going to look come fall with those who are getting vaccinated, those who aren't? And are we obviously going to follow CDC guidelines, or will we be able to change things around depending on our percentage of vaccinations versus none?
So that's a great question. I right now know of clinical trials for 12-year-olds and up. I haven't heard yet about anything under 12. We are definitely, staff vaccinations are the reason that we're shifting to phase 3. I'm hopeful that we will feel more comfortable, in a normal situation, a more normal situation in the fall. I'll be interested to see, once the vaccination becomes available for kids, it'll be interesting to see how that's addressed, because we have some vaccinations that are required, as you know, and I have not heard yet whether or not this vaccination would be required. The State Board of Education, has made it very clear that their goal is to get kids back to learning, and that they don't want any of the safety guidance to be a barrier to that. But we still have safety recommendations. So it'll be interesting to see how that evolves. But I hope that we've demonstrated already that our willingness to shift when variables do change for us, and we feel that the level of risk is reduced in one area, then we try to move a little bit forward so that we can get more back to normal. That's kind of the approach that we've taken, just trying to do better each time that we feel like we can. So. Anything else? I think we're looking at a group of folks who are interested in getting to spring break at this point and having a break from the action here. I would say this is not an atypical feeling for this time of year. So even though we are in the middle of a pandemic, March is typically a tough year, really, or a tough time of year. Really quickly, as an update, we are heading into assessment season. I know that everyone knows this is typically the time of year we're talking about, standardized assessments and MAP assessments and access tests, and this is the season for us. We're still getting some updates on the standardized assessment, so stay tuned on that, parents. We will begin MAP testing, our spring window for MAP testing probably in April. We do want to get a handle on how our kids are doing and how we can plan better for next year, or even for summer. We're getting some information together on summer and opportunities as well. So stay tuned for that. And I guess we will see you all after spring break. We're supposed to have a meeting over spring break. I mean, I don't know if anyone's interested in getting to, I'm hoping you're laughing. I was kidding. We're not going to get together after spring break. So we'll see you after spring break. As always, we're here. If you have thoughts, questions, suggestions, send them our way. We want to hear how things are going and what you're thinking.